The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of Robert Downey Jr. Act 1. Born into Hollywood chaos. Robert Downey Jr. was born in 1965 in New York City, the son of avant-garde filmmaker Robert Downey Sr. and actress Elsie Ford. From the start, Hollywood was his playground and his curse. His father was deeply involved in the counterculture film scene of the 1970s, where drugs flowed as freely as ideas. Shockingly, Downey Jr. has recalled that his father gave him marijuana when he was just 6 years old. This early exposure set the stage for a lifelong struggle with addiction. By the time he was a teenager, he was acting in his father's films and already experimenting with cocaine, alcohol, and marijuana. Stardom seemed inevitable, but so did self-destruction. Act 2. The Breakthrough. In the 1980s, Robert moved to Hollywood for real. He joined the cast of Saturday Night Live in 1985, though his tenure was short-lived. His real breaker came in films like Weird Science, 1985, Less Than Zero, 1987, and Chaplin, 1992. In Less Than Zero, he played a rich kid destroyed by drugs, a role that eerily mirrored his own reality. Critics praised his charisma, his energy, his raw talent. By 1992, his performance as Charlie Chaplin earned him an Academy Award nomination. Hollywood declared him one of the greatest actors of his generation. But behind the acclaim, addiction was tightening its grip. Act 3. The Descent into Addiction. The 1990s turned into a nightmare. Downey Jr. was arrested multiple times for drug possession, cocaine, heroin, marijuana. His arrests were constant tabloid fodder. 1996, arrested for heroin, cocaine, and an unloaded handgun. 1997, missed a required drug test, sentenced to 6 months in jail. 1999, another violation, sentenced to nearly 3 years in prison. His addiction was so severe that he once wandered into a neighbor's house, high, and fell asleep in their child's bed. Judges described him as someone who seemed incapable of staying clean. Hollywood turned its back. Insurance companies refused to cover him. He was fired from projects mid-production. The brilliant star was now considered unemployable. Act 4. Rock Bottom. By the early 2000s, Robert Downey Jr. had become a tragic punchline. His career was in ruins, and his personal life was shattered. He spent time in state prison, rehab clinics, and halfway houses. Friends and colleagues doubted he would ever recover. Yet even at his lowest, flashes of his brilliance remained. In 2000, he had a comeback role on Ally McBeal, winning a Golden Globe. But just as his star seemed to rise again, he was arrested once more for drugs and fired from the show. For many, it seemed like the end. Act 5. The Turning Point. The early 2000s were crucial. After yet another arrest, Robert finally decided he'd had enough. In 2003, he met producer Susan Levin on the set of Gothica. She would later become his wife, and the anchor he needed. Levin gave him an ultimatum. If he didn't get clean, she would leave. Downey chose her over drugs. With the support of therapy, meditation, martial arts, and sheer willpower, he began to rebuild his life. Still, Hollywood wasn't ready to forgive. No one wanted to take a risk on him. But one director was willing to gamble. Act 6. Iron Man and Resurrection. Jon Favreau, director of Marvel's Iron Man, 2008, fought to cast Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Marvel executives were reluctant. Downey's past made him a huge risk. But Favreau insisted. The character is Robert. He understands self-destruction. He knows what redemption means. Downey nailed the audition. When Iron Man was released in 2008, it didn't just launch the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It resurrected Robert Downey Jr.'s career. His sardonic wit, charisma, and vulnerability made Tony Stark iconic. He went from Hollywood exile to the highest-paid actor in the world. Act 7, from pariah to icon. Over the next decade, Downey became the face of Marvel. Iron Man, The Avengers, and Endgame made billions. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a cultural symbol of comeback and resilience. By 2012, he was the highest-paid actor in Hollywood, earning $50 million a year. The man who once slept in a stranger's bed, while high, was now the cornerstone of the most successful film franchise in history. He also became a philanthropist, supporting charities and advocating for recovery programs. His marriage to Susan remained strong, and he credited her for his stability. Act 8, Legacy of Redemption. Robert Downey Jr.'s story is one of the greatest redemption arcs in Hollywood history. From a boy introduced to drugs at 6, to an Oscar-nominated actor, to a prisoner, and finally to Iron Man, his journey embodies both the darkness of addiction and the possibility of recovery. Today, he stands as a symbol of resilience. His story reminds us that talent alone is never enough, but with support, discipline, and courage, even the most broken lives can be rebuilt. In his own words, "It's not that difficult to overcome these seemingly ghastly problems. What's hard is to decide to do it." Sparkle's closing thought: Robert Downey Jr. is proof that Hollywood doesn't just create stars, it can destroy them. But sometimes, against all odds, it gives them a second chance. And when it does, the comeback can be greater than the fall. Act 9, Beyond Iron Man. When Avengers Endgame 2019 closed with Tony Stark's sacrifice, it wasn't just the end of a character. It felt like the end of an era for Robert Downey Jr. For millions, he was Iron Man. But for him, it was time to prove he could stand without the armor. After Marvel, Downey explored new projects. He starred in Dolittle 2020, which flopped critically, reminding the world that not every comeback is flawless. Yet it didn't shake his legacy. In 2023, he returned triumphantly with Oppenheimer, playing Louis Strauss, a complex, nuanced role that earned him some of the best reviews of his career, and an Academy Award win for Best Supporting Actor in 2024. Away from acting, Downey invested in sustainable technology through his Footprint Coalition, dedicated to fighting climate change with advanced science. He became less a Hollywood bad boy and more a thoughtful elder statesman of the industry. The chaos of his past never disappeared, but he learned to transform it into wisdom. Once written off as a lost cause, he is now living proof that even after prison, scandal, and addiction, you can build a second act, and even a third. Today, Robert Downey Jr. stands not just as Iron Man, but as something even greater, a man who outlived his demons.